people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest from Estrada, ahead of her upcoming undisputed title tilt with Costa Valle. I want to go undisputed, and I want the biggest fights this year. I want every fight to be a big fight. That is possible.
It's possible that she could end up facing 3 champions at 2 weights this year.
The sun shining through the smile of Estrada also, a fighter happy to be just a few weeks away from making her long-awaited return to the ring after her extended ring hiatus. The injury was very disappointing, Estrada told me. The fight before that, I had won the WBC title, and I had a sensational performance against a very good champion. But I ended the year with this hand injury, which was very disappointing, and I was out of the ring for the rest of the year. I tore a ligament in the second round, and when the ligament tore, it also chipped off a piece of bone. When I got the MRI and x-rays, it revealed previous damage that was already in my hand, so I had arthritis and another fracture already. I tore my ligament, and I had another small fracture in the fight as well.
That was the Leonela Paula Yudica fight where Estrada looked less than spectacular. She won the fight, but she struggled.
It was a combination of 4 different things. It wasn't surprising that I had already damaged my hand because for the last 2 fights in training and sparring, I wasn't able to use my right hand as much as I wanted to. I wasn't able to punch with it 100% because it felt uncomfortable. It was painful and would swell up a little bit after sparring sessions. So getting the surgery was the best thing for me because it cured all the different things that were wrong with my hand. It definitely doesn't feel the way it did before. It also helped that Estrada is ambidextrous. She can fight southpaw, she can fight orthodox.
Right hand starts bothering her, she can switch over.
Switch over to southpaw and use her left hand as her power hand. Use her left hand for the power shots.
While her right hand was bothering her, she'll have 2 good hands now in this Valle fight.
The surgery appears to have been a success, but for Estrada, there were doubts if the hand would ever go back to how it was before the surgery. I wasn't sure how I would feel coming back to the gym and starting to punch on it again. A now relieved fighter relayed to me, it was a little unpredictable, but I am now slowly starting to punch with the right hand again, and it feels great. It feels as good as new, so I'm happy about that. Those doubts were heightened because Estrada felt her entire career was at risk. A unified world champion who at the peak of her career feared her boxing life could be over, leaving her resume in an incomplete and unfulfilled status. I really did fear for my career the first couple of months.
How do we know this isn't just her putting on a brave face and downplaying the injury?
The subsequent surgery, how do we know? The truth is that we don't, but I don't anticipate it's going to be a problem because she was fighting injured before.
She was basically injured in the Ruprecht fight and the Yudica fight, but she still managed to win both now that she's had the surgery.
It's an improvement. The first couple of months when I was in my cast, I was so depressed and sad, a reflective Estrada told Fight Post. I didn't know how my hand would feel or if it would ever be 100% again. I had a great doctor perform my surgery, but even he said, I can't guarantee it would be 100% again because you're a fighter and you will go back to impact and back to punching on it again, and the pain that I felt before could come back again, but right now it feels great. I am continuing all my therapy and making sure that I train smart and taking steps I need to so I can throw my right hand with full power again. I am very excited for the fight. Estrada says, I am now 25-0 and I feel as though I need to be undisputed. I have wanted to be undisputed for a long time. I have been trying to make this fight with Valle when I was still signed with Golden Boy Promo. I told them I wanted to fight her, and that's why we reached out to them. But I am so excited to be undisputed. It will be such a great feeling to become undisputed at minimum weight. I definitely want to be undisputed at another weight as well, so I will move up to either light flyweight or flyweight. The
silver lining is that at light flyweight, consolidation of world titles has more or less already taken place. There are only 2 champions there, so that's saying that Senicia Estrada could become a 2-time undisputed champion in just 3 fights, barring illness or injury.
There's only 2 champions at light flyweight, just 2, and the 4 alphabet titles are split between those 2. So if she takes care of business with Yo Costa, 2 fights after that, she could be a 2-time undisputed champion.
Yeah.
Coming off of my injury, my team was talking about taking another fight before Valle just so we can see how her hand feels. That might be the smart thing to do, but for a month, it was really bothering me because I want to go undisputed and I want the biggest fights for this year. I want every fight to be a big fight. It's a risk either way, but I feel very comfortable going into this fight. That time off was well needed, physically and mentally.
The fight with Valle is not only about undisputed, it's a personal fight in many ways. The Valle camp has connections of old to Estrada. The previous promotional relationship at the core of the fight next month, Estrada has long chased a meeting with her rival champion.
It's definitely personal because in every interview she's been saying I've been ducking her, which is completely false because there has been only effort on our side to make the fight happen. Estrada says of that long-standing rivalry, we are the ones who have been reaching out all these years to make the fight happen, but it is going to be such a great fight for women's boxing.
The injury, the surgery, and the potentiality that it could flare up again, I really don't think it's going to be an issue in this fight. I anticipate Senicia is going to dominate Yo Costa Valle. She's not just going to beat her, she's going to dominate her.
Barring illness or injury, it should be a very productive year for Senicia because, as stated, after the Valle fight and just 2 more fights, she could be a 2-time undisputed champion.
And just 2 more fights, both of which could happen this calendar year.
We'll see. Men's welterweight news. Another look at what could be a fight between Conor Benn and Danny Garcia as former 2-weight world champion Danny Garcia calls out Conor Benn. It seems to be a fight that he's receptive to now that the fight between him and Lara isn't happening in the PBC. Don't seem to have much for him to do.
Much in terms of fight dates.
This is a fight that could happen at 147 or 154, provided that they can make the numbers work and provided that Danny Garcia, the former 2-weight world champion, can be realistic and reasonable, something that PBC fighters often aren't.
He's a gatekeeper.
Danny Garcia is a fucking gatekeeper, and by and large, one of the most overrated fighters in the sport of boxing in the last 10 years.
Dial it back a bit, Bert Sugar.
Not dialing nothing back. I'm not one of these content creators trying to be buddy-buddy with every boxer for access. That ain't me.
It's not.
I'm gonna give it to you straight, because it's the only way. I know how to give it to you. And Danny Garcia is, in fact, one of the most overrated fighters in the sport of boxing in the last 10 years or so. For how long did you see Haymanites talking this guy up?
Overrated doesn't mean bad. Overrated means overrated. Guy's getting too much credit.
What's the last time this guy racked up a solid victory over a solid fighter? What's the last solid Danny Garcia win? Sporting a professional record of 37 wins with 3 losses, no draws, 21 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 40 fights. He's more experienced than Conor Benn.
He's got a chin.
He's been in there with 1 or 2 heavy-handed punchers, a speedster in Amir Khan, a heavy-handed Argentinian slugger in Lucas Matisse, Errol Spence Jr. in more recent years, and to Danny's credit, he's never been knocked out. He's never been stopped. I've never even seen him drop.
Then why do you keep saying he's overrated?
Because he is overrated. The same people that would tear down, say, Terrence Crawford's resume would talk up a Danny Garcia for the simple fact that Errol Spence Jr. beat him. But since arriving at welterweight, since being there, Danny hasn't amassed a single solid victory. That's why he's overrated.
That's what makes him overrated.
He hasn't amassed a solid victory over a solid fighter since Lucas Matisse, and that was 10 years ago in 2013.
Then why is him fighting Conor Benn so interesting to you?
Because this is the kind of fight with the kind of fighter that Conor Benn is supposed to be having. He's at a point where he's supposed to be facing world-class fighters and former champions, guys who have been around the block. Danny has been around the block. He lost 3 times while being around the block.
Could Conor Benn give him his 4th loss?
Or could Danny give Conor his first? That's the question. That's what makes it a good fight. That's why it's intriguing. Conor Benn sports a professional record of 23 wins with no losses, no draws, and 14 knockouts.
His last 2 fights have been in the United States.
And you could do this one in the United States. You could sell this in Vegas. You could do it. Not having any luck with Chris Eubank Jr. I don't expect him to have any luck with Gervonta
Davis! Fat fucker.
Conor fought a couple of familiar faces in Samuel Vargas, a journeyman who's actually a common opponent between him and Danny Garcia. Adrian Granados, yet another common opponent between them. He fought a former champion in Chris Algieri, but of course, there was angling.
This is a much older, faded Chris Algieri than the Chris Algieri of old.
Familiar faces, though. Familiar faces still. And Danny would be a familiar face and an interesting opponent for Conor based on styles, because Danny Garcia just so happens to be a boxer puncher, a counter puncher.
Why is that important?
Because Conor Benn is a particularly aggressive customer. He's an aggressive guy. He steps into his punches to bring other punches over. He likes to crowd the pocket. He likes to stay in front of guys, putting punches together. If he's not careful with Danny, Danny might plant one on him.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit is right. And Conor's devastating knockout power that we were seeing before the anti-doping fiasco, we're not seeing it now. He doesn't seem as devastating a puncher. Now, that could be because he has been fighting at junior middleweight as opposed to welter where he was before. It could be that, or it could be that he's off the sauce, he's off the juice.
Off the gear!
And he needs to get back on it. Opposite the ring, Danny Garcia. He would be facing a fighter who has a somewhat stylistic advantage over him. Stylistic advantage and more in-the-ring experience, with the caveat being that Danny is older, he's in his mid-30s, and he's only fought once in the last 3 years. If you ask me who's hungrier, it's not Danny, it's Conor. So that matters too.
Yeah.
Who wants it more?
Yeah.
I believe that Danny Garcia's ambition died a long time ago. I believe that Danny Garcia left his ambition down there at 140 over 10 years ago with high-profile victories over Amir King Khan and Lucas Mathise. His welterweight campaign was nowhere near as successful.
He's a gatekeeper now.
Though he likely wants to get paid like it's still 2014 and 2015, he's a gatekeeper now.
Keep the gate.
Being last seen action in July of 2022, well over a year ago. He's only fought once in the last 3 years, and that was the Jose Benavidez fight that he had up there at 154 pounds. He wasn't able to stop Jose the same way that Terence Crawford did at 147. Jermall Charlo, he couldn't stop Jose either.
Because PBC fighters suck.
There isn't a nice way for me to say that.
Then why do you think a fight between Conroy and Danny is a good fight if PBC guys suck?
Well, look, I mean, he's all right at a certain level. Danny Garcia is. He's all right. He's serviceable up until a certain point, at a certain level. We don't know here and now that Conor's a world beater. We don't know that. He has to prove that. And beating a guy like Danny is a part of that process. But can he?
It's what we'd hope to find out from the fight. Will Danny bite?
PBC had no shows in January, none this month, and only one next month that Danny isn't on. Rumor has it there won't be an April show.
People really want to argue how great the Amazon deal is.
Look at all that greatness. The next show would have to be in May, and Danny would have to hope that he can land on what's supposed to be Canelo's card.
When's the next card supposed to go down after that?
When indeed, if Danny wants to fight, Matchroom can accommodate him. Matchroom is receptive to making a fight between him and young Conroy. Though he has to be realistic, because he's not a champion, he's not buzzing right now. It's not 2014 or 2015, and you're a glorified gatekeeper.
He's got to be realistic.
It's realistic. I think Matchroom would offer him something in the neighborhood of 7 figures for the fight, but obviously the low end of 7 figures, maybe 1 million, 1.5.
Even that seems like a lot for a fighter who's only fought once in the last 3 years and isn't buzzing.
They might offer him something like that for a fight with young Conroy, and if he doesn't like it, he can stay on the shelf collecting dust.
You got something better to do.
Upstairs in super middleweight news, David Benavidez will be officially set as Canelo Alvarez's WBC mandatory challenger in March.
He wasn't already?
WBC President Mauricio Suleiman has reaffirmed. Suleiman has not clarified when the fight would be ordered, but indicated Canelo will be free to face another opponent in May.
Isn't this what I told you?
What they told you, what the WBC already told you. They're not going to put any deadlines or time constraints on Canelo Alvarez because, I mean, they already learned their lesson with the Golovkin fiasco downstairs at middleweight. Do you remember when they were trying to impose a deadline on Canelo and he told them they can take their belt and they can shove it?
He did end up fighting Gennady Golovkin, but on his time, not theirs.
They've been playing nice ever since. They've been sucking up to him ever since. Thus, this strategy to where it's Canelo or bust, Canelo or no one, It doesn't work.
That's what I've been saying.
It doesn't work.
People don't want to hear that.
It doesn't work.
What do you want I should do? You want I should be broken up about it? You want I should be upset? You want me to bellyache, bitch, and moan and cry about it? I told you. David ain't nothing but a mandatory challenger. That's all he is. And the WBC is not going to strip Canelo of the title to give it to David because David would bring them less money. They take a percentage.
Take a percentage out of the fighter's purse, and that same percentage out of Canelo's purse as opposed to David, to them, it's more money. So they're not going to take the belt from Canelo to give it to David so that they end up making less money.
I know that. You know that. Samson Lukowicz knows that, but you still want to sit on your hands waiting for Canelo. Go ahead.
Samson said that the fight between Canelo and David doesn't look to be happening anytime this year. So what is David going to do with what remains of this year that literally just started? We're only in February.
So what are you going to do? A year's worth of cream puffs or a year on the bench?
In my previous video, we talked about how Samson Lukowicz said that if Canelo doesn't fight David, it's a stain on his legacy, but let's be realistic here. Canelo's gonna be alright. Canelo could retire tomorrow and be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but David, can David say that? He's in his mid-20s. These are his best years.
What's his legacy?
Canelo Alvarez is the top earning boxer, the highest paid boxer in the sport. He's still that. He's not strapped for cash. His legacy's alright. His legacy's fine. This is not me advocating against the fight.
It's not.
This is me looking at the news, looking at what's out there, looking at Samson Lukowicz saying that the fight doesn't look to be happening this year.
And David is 27 years old.
For a perspective, by age 27, Canelo Alvarez had already fought unbeaten Austin Trout, Floyd Mayweather, a high-risk, low-reward opponent in Estrada Lara, Miguel Cotto in a successful pay-per-view, and Gennady Golovkin at least once.
It's not even counting guys like WBO champion Liam Smith, Amir Khan, and what turned out to be a successful pay-per-view, relatively speaking, 600,000 pay-per-views sold. David Benavidez is not now where Canelo Alvarez was then, when he was 27.
And he doesn't want to roll the dice the same way that Canelo did with fighters like Austin Trout, unbeaten at the time, Estrada Lara. He doesn't want to roll the dice.
You fighting Caleb Plant after Canelo already knocked him out is not rolling the dice.
Fighting Demetrius Andrade, a light puncher in his mid-30s at a new weight, that's not rolling the dice either. It doesn't fool anyone, and it's not doing a whole lot for you and your profile.
You don't want to gamble. You don't want to roll the dice. You think you can afford to play the waiting game because you're a bit younger than Canelo.
You're just leaving yourself at his mercy because you don't actually have any leverage in the situation. That's why the World Boxing Council is non-committal and aren't giving a time frame as to when they'll order that fight.
There's no nice way for me to say that.
But it needs to be said. If all you've got going for you is that you're WBC interim champion, good luck getting the WBC to order that fight.
That's reality.
Arguing with Ring IQ or leaving nasty comments in the comment section of his videos isn't going to change anything.
You think the WBC is protecting Canelo?
Is that like Samson Lukowicz protecting David Benavidez? From David Morrell.
Like that?
The pendulum swings both ways.